They say family comes first, but sometimes family forgets you exist until they need something. I'm Rosemary, born in 1952 in Melbourne. Back in 2019, at my grandson's graduation, my son said those words that changed everything. Don't embarrass him again, Mum. I felt my heart shatter into 1,000 pieces. But then something happened. Today, at 71, sitting in my quiet cottage, I'm finally sharing this because someone needs to hear that it's never too late to choose yourself. If you're listening, drop your location below, and please subscribe. This story might save your sanity. The morning of Oliver's graduation dawned crisp and clear in Sydney. I'd driven 3 hours from my little town, my best dress pressed, my hair done at the salon the day before. $70,000 I'd already put toward Oliver's education, with another $20,000 sitting in an envelope in my handbag as my graduation gift. I was practically vibrating with pride as I walked toward the university gates. Mum, what are you doing here? My son James appeared beside me, his face twisted in that familiar expression of annoyance I'd grown to dread. I thought we discussed this. Discuss what, love? It's Oliver's graduation day. Of course I'm here. James grabbed my elbow, steering me away from the other families streaming toward the ceremony hall. Look at yourself, Mum. Look at what you're wearing. His eyes swept over my floral dress, the same one I'd worn to church for years. The one I thought looked respectable. You'll embarrass him. These are important people, his professors, and potential employers. Can't you just go home? The words hit me like a physical blow. I stared at my son, this man I'd raised, fed, clothed, supported through 2 failed businesses and a messy divorce. This man whose mortgage I'd helped pay when he was struggling. This man whose son I'd practically raised while he was finding himself in his 30s. James, I've been planning this for months. I bought Oliver that laptop for his final year. And we're grateful, really. But this isn't about you, Mum. It's about Oliver's future. These people don't need to see. He gestured vaguely at me, and I felt myself shrinking, becoming smaller with each word. I watched through the glass doors as other grandparents filed in, some in simple clothes like mine, others more formally dressed. They all looked proud, excited. They all belonged there. But apparently I didn't. Fine, I whispered, my voice barely audible. I'll wait in the car. Actually, maybe you should just head home. The traffic will be terrible later. And you know how you get anxious driving in the dark. I nodded numbly, clutching my handbag with Oliver's graduation money inside. As I walked back to my car, I heard James call out, "Thanks for understanding, Mum. You're the best!" The best, right? I sat in my car for 20 minutes, watching families celebrate, watching grandparents hug their grandchildren, watching the life I should have been living happen without me. Then I drove to the nearest motel and checked in for the night, lying on that scratchy motel bedspread, staring at the water-stained ceiling. Memories flooded back like a dam bursting. The bakery Harold and I had built from nothing, working 18-hour days until our hands were permanently stained with flour. How we'd scrimped and saved, never taking holidays, never buying anything for ourselves. When Harold died 5 years ago, I'd sold the bakery and used the money to support James and Oliver. James's first business failure, I'd given him $15,000 to get back on his feet. His second failure was another $10,000. Plus I'd co-signed his apartment lease. When Oliver needed money for school supplies, camps, sports equipment, it was always, "Can you help out, Mum?" Just this once. Just this once had become every month for the past decade. I thought about Oliver's 16th birthday party. I'd spent weeks planning it, baking his favorite chocolate cake from scratch, decorating the house. When he opened my gift, a watch that had belonged to his grandfather, he'd barely looked up from his phone. "Thanks, Nan," he'd mumbled, then asked James if he could leave early to hang out with friends. I thought about last Christmas, when I'd cooked for 12 people, spent 3 days preparing, and James had complained that the turkey was dry. Oliver had spent the entire meal texting, leaving right after dessert without helping clean up. I thought about the countless times I'd babysat Oliver while James went on dates, went out with friends, went anywhere but home to be a father. how I'd helped with homework, attended parent-teacher conferences when James was too busy, cheered at soccer games from the sidelines while James worked late again, and today, after everything, I was too embarrassed to be seen at my own grandson's graduation. Something cold and hard settled in my chest as I lay there in that motel room. It wasn't just hurt anymore, it was clarity. For 20 years, I'd been the family ATM, the reliable backup plan, the woman who said yes to everything and asked for nothing in return. I'd made myself so available, so accommodating, that I'd become invisible. I pulled out my phone and looked at the photos from today of other families celebrating, grandparents beaming with pride, graduates hugging their loved ones. Then I opened my banking app and stared at the numbers. The trust fund I'd set up for Oliver still had $20,000 sitting in it. The monthly payments I made toward James's car loan. The credit card I'd given him for emergencies that somehow always had a balance. Harold's voice echoed in my memory from one of our last conversations before he died. "Rosie, love, you can't pour from an empty cup. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do is teach people to value what they have." I thought I was being kind all these years. I thought I was being a good mother, a good grandmother. But kindness without boundaries isn't kindness, it's enabling. And I'd enabled my son to treat me like I was disposable. The envelope with Oliver's graduation money sat on the nightstand, mocking me. $20,000 for a young man who couldn't even acknowledge my presence at his graduation. $20,000 for someone who saw me as an embarrassment rather than the woman who'd helped make his education possible. I picked up the envelope and held it for a long moment. Then I tore it open and counted the bills inside. Tomorrow, this money was going somewhere else. Somewhere it would be appreciated. For the first time in years, I felt something other than resignation. I felt powerful. The next morning, I didn't drive home. Instead, I drove straight to the bank in Sydney's CBD, that envelope of graduation money burning a hole in my handbag. But this time, it wasn't going to Oliver. It was going back into my own account. The young teller looked surprised when I deposited $20,000 in cash, but I just smiled and asked to speak with a financial advisor. "Mrs. Patterson, how can I help you today?" Margaret Chen, my advisor for the past 3 years, looked genuinely pleased to see me. "I want to make some changes to my accounts." "Big changes?" I pulled out a folder I'd organized in my motel room the night before. Bank statements, trust documents, everything. "I want to stop all automatic payments to my son, James, the car loan, the credit card, everything." Margaret's eyebrows rose slightly. "That's quite a significant change. May I ask?" "My son told me yesterday that I was too embarrassed to attend my grandson's graduation. After 20 years of supporting them both financially and emotionally, I've decided it's time they learn to support themselves." Margaret nodded slowly, her expression understanding. "I see. And the trust fund for Oliver? Close it. Transfer everything back to my personal account." I felt a strange lightness in my chest as I said it. "I want to set up a scholarship fund instead, for first-generation university students who actually appreciate the opportunity." We spent 2 hours going through everything. The monthly payments to James are gone. The emergency credit card was canceled. The trust fund dissolved. By the time I left that bank, I'd reclaimed over $40,000 in various accounts and stopped payments that totaled nearly $2,000 a month. My phone started ringing before I'd even reached my car. "James, Mom, what the hell have you done?" My car payment bounced, and the bank called about the credit card. "Are you having some kind of breakdown?" I let it ring. Then I turned off my phone entirely. The drive home to Ballarat was the most peaceful 3 hours I'd had in years. No phone calls, no guilt, no wondering what crisis I'd need to solve next. Just me, the open road, and the radio playing songs from my youth. At home, I made myself a proper cup of tea and sat in Harold's old chair, the one I'd avoided since he died because it made me too sad. Today, it felt like a hug. I turned my phone back on to find 17 missed calls from James and 3 voicemails. The first voicemail was angry. "Mom, call me back immediately. I don't know what game you're playing, but this isn't funny." The second was desperate. "Please, Mom, I need that money. You can't just cut me off like this." What about Oliver's education? The third was manipulative. I'm sorry about yesterday, okay? Maybe I was a bit harsh, but you have to understand the pressure I'm under. These people judge everything. Can we please just talk about this like adults? I deleted all three without calling back. Instead, I called my lawyer, Patricia Williams, whom I'd known since Harold and I first bought the bakery, Rosemary. How lovely to hear from you. How can I help? I need to change my will, Patricia. Completely. The next morning, I sat in Patricia's office with a cup of her terrible coffee, watching her face as I outlined my new wishes. James was to be removed as a beneficiary entirely. The house, the remaining money from the bakery sale, my superannuation, everything was going to establish a permanent scholarship fund for disadvantaged students. Are you absolutely certain about this, Rosemary? It's quite a dramatic change. I've never been more certain of anything in my life. That afternoon, I received a text from Oliver. Nan, Dad told me what happened. I'm sorry I didn't thank you properly for everything you've done. I know you've sacrificed a lot for us. Can we talk? For a moment, my resolve wavered. This was my grandson, the little boy I'd read bedtime stories to, taught to ride a bike, comforted through nightmares. But then I remembered his face at his birthday party, his phone at Christmas dinner, his absence from my life except when money was needed. I texted back, Oliver, I love you, but love isn't enough anymore. I hope you understand someday that the greatest gift I can give you now is the chance to become independent. Take care of yourself. Then I blocked both their numbers. The silence that followed was initially terrifying, then liberating. For the first time in decades, my phone wasn't constantly buzzing with requests, demands, or crises that somehow always required my financial intervention. I used that silence to research scholarship programs. I found exactly what I was looking for. A program supporting first-generation university students from rural backgrounds. Students like Sophia, a 19-year-old from a small farming town whose parents had never finished high school. Students who understood the value of opportunity because they'd never taken it for granted. When I met Sophia at a scholarship ceremony 6 months later, I saw myself at her age, hungry for knowledge, grateful for every chance, determined to make something of herself. She hugged me with tears in her eyes and said, Mrs. Patterson, you've changed my entire life. No one in my family had ever said those words to me. I also did something I hadn't done in years. I called my old friend Reed from high school. We'd lost touch when I married Harold, but I'd always wondered what happened to the boy who used to make me laugh until my sides hurt. Rosemary Fletcher? Well, I'll be damned. How are you, love? We talked for 3 hours on that first call. Reed had been widowed too, had his own stories of ungrateful children who only called when they needed something. We started meeting for coffee, then dinner, then long walks along the lake where we'd skipped school as teenagers. You know what I love about you, Rosie? Reed said one evening as we watched a sunset. You finally learned to put yourself first. It suits you. A year later, I received a wedding invitation in the mail. Oliver was getting married, and apparently I was invited. There was a handwritten note. Nan, I know things have been difficult between us, but you're still family. I hope you'll come. I looked at that invitation for a long time. Part of me wanted to go, wanted to see my grandson in his happiness, wanted to be the grandmother who forgave everything and opened her arms wide. Instead, I wrote a polite note declining and enclosed a small gift, a photo of Harold and me on our wedding day. With a note, true love means supporting each other's growth, even when it's difficult. I hope you find that kind of partnership. Love always. Nan. Then I donated the money I would have spent on a wedding gift to Sophia's scholarship fund. That evening, Reed and I sat on my back porch, sharing a bottle of wine and watching the stars. Any regrets? He asked. I thought about it honestly. None. For the first time in my life, I'm living my own story instead of being a supporting character in everyone else's. Sometimes the greatest act of love is teaching people to value what they have by showing them what life looks like without it. I learned that lesson too late for my own family, but just in time for myself. Moral lesson. True strength blooms when we choose self-respect over people-pleasing, creating space for authentic relationships built on mutual appreciation rather than one-sided sacrifice.